Every generation has a fighter who defines fear. In the 1980s, that fear had a name: Mike Tyson. Not just feared for his knockouts, but for the aura, the way he walked, the way he stared, the way grown men, champions, broke before the first punch landed. But that terror, it wasn't born. It was forged with sweat, pain, discipline, and obsession. He was sculpted in pain, programmed like a weapon, obsessed with perfection. Every minute of his life was built around one purpose: to break another man's will. Tyson didn't just train harder than anyone, he trained with the fury of a man fighting to escape his own past. This wasn't training, this was transformation. This is not just a story about workouts, it's the anatomy of a monster. A deep dive into the savage, soul-crushing routine that took a broken kid from Brooklyn and turned him into the most feared heavyweight the world has ever seen. This is Mike Tyson's brutal training routine that built a monster. Welcome to Back to Boxing. To understand the monster Mike Tyson became, you have to start at the beginning. Born June 30th, 1966 in Brooklyn's Brownsville, Tyson grew up in a war zone of poverty and crime. By age 13, he'd been arrested 38 times, a troubled kid with no clear path. But beneath the chaos was raw, untapped power. Enter Bobby Stewart, a former boxer and counselor at Tryon School for Boys, who saw Tyson's potential after watching him throw punches with terrifying force. Stewart introduced him to Cus D'Amato, a boxing sage who trained champions like Floyd Patterson. He wasn't just a trainer, he was a boxing philosopher, a student of human psychology, and arguably one of the greatest trainers in boxing history. D'Amato's philosophy was simple yet revolutionary. Boxing wasn't just about physical strength or even technique. It was about conquering fear, developing killer instinct, and creating a fighter who was mentally unbreakable. As D'Amato famously said, "The hero and the coward both feel the same thing, but the hero uses his fear, projects it onto his opponent, while the coward runs. It's the same thing, fear, but it's what you do with it that matters." This philosophy would become the cornerstone of everything Tyson did in training. Every exercise, every drill, every moment of pain was designed not just to build physical strength, but to forge an indomitable will. D'Amato saw something special in the young Tyson: raw power combined with lightning speed, but more importantly, a deep well of anger and pain that could be channeled into devastating fighting ability. The training routine he designed wasn't just about building a boxer, it was about creating a predator. The 4 a.m. warrior. While most teenagers were fast asleep, dreaming of weekend plans and video games, 15-year-old Mike Tyson was beginning his transformation into a fighting machine. Every single day started the same way: 4 a.m. sharp. The alarm would pierce the silence of the Catskill Mountains, and within minutes, Tyson would be lacing up his running shoes. This wasn't a casual jog. This was a 3 to 5 mile run through challenging terrain, designed to build not just cardiovascular endurance, but mental toughness. But here's what made Tyson's morning runs different from any other athlete's: the visualization. As his feet pounded the pavement, Tyson would mentally rehearse fights, visualizing himself destroying opponents, imagining their fear as he stalked them around the ring. This wasn't just physical conditioning, it was psychological programming. Picture the scene: a young Tyson, already built like a truck, running through the pre-dawn darkness. His breathing is controlled, rhythmic. His mind is focused on one thing: becoming unstoppable. The cold mountain air fills his lungs as he pushes his body to its limits, knowing that somewhere out there, his future opponents are still sleeping. After the run came the calisthenics, and this is where things got absolutely brutal. We're not talking about a few push-ups and sit-ups. This was a systematic destruction and rebuilding of the human body. 2,000 sit-ups. Let that number sink in. 2,000. Every single morning. But these weren't ordinary sit-ups. Tyson would perform multiple variations: regular sit-ups, leg raises, Russian twists, bicycle crunches, each one designed to build explosive core power that would translate into devastating punching force. But the sit-ups were just the beginning. Next came 500 push-ups, but again, not your standard push-ups. Diamond push-ups for tricep power, wide grip for chest development, one-handed push-ups for unilateral strength. Each variation served a specific purpose in building the explosive upper body power that would make Tyson's punches legendary. The science of destruction, technical training. Now we enter the technical laboratory where raw athletic ability was transformed into scientific destruction. Cus D'Amato's peekaboo style wasn't just a defensive technique, it was a complete fighting philosophy that turned Tyson into a seek-and-destroy missile. The heavy bag work was poetry written in violence. 10 to 12 rounds, 3 minutes each with 1 minute rest, simulating actual fight conditions but at an intensity that bordered on the supernatural. Each punch was thrown with bad intentions. The leather bag absorbing thousands of pounds of force as Tyson practiced combinations that would later end careers. Left hook to the body, right uppercut to the head. The combinations were deceptively simple but devastatingly effective, drilled tens of thousands of times until they became muscle memory. When Tyson threw these combinations in actual fights, his body moved with the precision of a Swiss watch and the violence of a natural disaster. The speed bag work developed hand-eye coordination that seemed almost mystical. 3 to 4 rounds daily, building the rhythm and timing that made Tyson's combinations flow like deadly water. But more than coordination, this work built the shoulder endurance that allowed him to maintain devastating hand speed even in championship rounds. Pad work with trainers was where artistry met brutality. Kevin Rooney would call out combinations as Tyson unleashed controlled violence on the mitts. The sound echoed through the gym like gunshots, each punch thrown with the intention to end fights immediately. But the most crucial element was the sparring, and this is where Tyson's training became legendary. This wasn't light technical sparring. This was war preparation. Tyson would regularly face multiple fresh opponents in single sessions, with new partners rotating in every few rounds to keep him under constant pressure. These sparring sessions were infamous throughout boxing. Tyson would hunt his partners like a predator, cutting off the ring, landing shots that would have ended fights if thrown with full power. Partners would leave the gym questioning their career choices, having experienced a preview of what Tyson's future opponents would face on fight night. Mental warfare, psychological conditioning. What separated Mike Tyson from every other heavyweight wasn't just his physical gifts, it was his mental approach to combat. D'Amato understood that boxing was psychological warfare, and he crafted a mental conditioning program that was as systematic and brutal as the physical training. Visualization became Tyson's secret weapon. For hours each day, he would sit in meditation-like focus, mentally rehearsing fights down to the smallest detail. He would see himself walking to the ring, feel the crowd's energy, observe the fear in his opponent's eyes. But most importantly, he would visualize complete domination, not just winning, but psychologically destroying his opponent's will to fight. Tyson once described his mental preparation. "I would envision myself as a Roman gladiator, as a warrior from ancient times. I would think about how I was going to break my opponent's will, how I was going to make him quit before he even wanted to fight." This wasn't confidence building. This was psychological programming on a level rarely seen in any sport. The mental training extended to studying fight films, not just for technique, but to understand the psychology of dominance. D'Amato and Tyson would analyze how great fighters imposed their will, how they broke opponents mentally before delivering physical destruction. Fear became both Tyson's fuel and his weapon. D'Amato taught him to embrace fear, to use it as energy rather than allowing it to create hesitation. The intense daily training served dual purposes, building physical capabilities while simultaneously proving to Tyson that he could overcome any obstacle, endure any punishment, survive any challenge. The psychological conditioning also involved channeling Tyson's troubled past into fighting fuel. Rather than trying to eliminate his anger and pain, D'Amato taught him to weaponize these emotions. Every punch thrown in training carried years of frustration and rage, emotions that would explode with devastating effect when unleashed on opponents. This approach created a fighter who was mentally unbreakable. While opponents dealt with normal pre-fight anxiety and doubt, Tyson had already won the psychological battle through thousands of hours of mental conditioning. He entered every fight with absolute certainty of victory. Not hope or belief, but knowledge. The numbers game, breaking down the routine. Let's examine the actual numbers behind this legendary routine, because the sheer volume of work is almost incomprehensible by modern standards. Daily schedule. 4 a.m. wake up, 3 to 5 mile run, 2,000 sit-ups, 500 push-ups. That was before breakfast. The real work happened in the gym. Heavy bag, 10 to 12 rounds at fight intensity. Speed bag, 3 to 4 rounds of precision work. Pad work, 5 to 6 rounds of combination drilling. Sparring, 4 to 6 rounds, often against multiple fresh opponents. Neck bridges, 3 sets front and back, 1 minute holds each. Jump rope, 10 to 15 minutes of non-stop rhythm and footwork, speed steps, double unders and endurance drills. Medicine ball, relentless core punishment, weighted throws, slams and partner drills targeting the abs, obliques and lower back. Each session performed at maximum intensity, treating every round like a championship fight. To put this in perspective, most professional boxers today might complete 8 to 10 total rounds of bag work. Tyson was doing nearly double that every single day, 7 days a week for years. The volume was staggering, but it was the relentless consistency that built his legendary conditioning and technique. Neck strengthening exercises protected against knockouts. Every exercise served a specific purpose in the boxing performance equation. Recovery was built into the system through precise nutrition and sleep protocols. Tyson consumed 4,000–5,000 calories daily of clean, performance-focused nutrition. Sleep was sacred. 8 to 10 hours nightly, because D'Amato understood that adaptation happened during rest. Massage therapy and flexibility work were as intense as the training itself. Maintaining peak performance at this level required constant body maintenance, like a Formula One car that needs expert tuning to perform at maximum capacity. Results in the ring. All of this brutal training, all of this systematic destruction and rebuilding of the human body and mind was leading to one thing: absolute dominance in the boxing ring. And the results speak for themselves. By age 20, Tyson had become the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history. His early fights were less like boxing matches and more like public executions. Opponents would often look defeated before the opening bell, intimidated not just by Tyson's reputation, but by the aura of controlled violence that surrounded him. The numbers from his early career are staggering: 37 professional fights, 37 victories, 33 by knockout. But it wasn't just that he was winning, it was how he was winning. First-round knockouts became routine. Opponents who had never been knocked down in their careers were being stretched out on the canvas within minutes of facing Tyson. Watch footage of prime Tyson, and you can see the training manifested in every movement. The way he stalked his opponents, cutting off the ring with the patience of a predator. The explosive power in every punch generated from the thousands of hours of technique work. The defensive mastery, slipping punches with millimeter precision before countering with devastating effect. The cardiovascular conditioning meant Tyson never got tired. While his opponents wilted under the pressure and pace, Tyson seemed to get stronger as fights went on. The mental conditioning meant he never showed doubt or fear. He was a psychological weapon as much as a physical one. But perhaps most importantly, you could see the complete integration of all elements of his training. The physical strength, the technical skill, the mental toughness, the killer instinct. They all came together to create something that transcended normal boxing. Tyson in his prime wasn't just a boxer. He was a force of nature, a perfect storm of athletic ability and psychological warfare. The training routine had achieved its purpose. It had created a monster. Not in the literal sense, but in terms of boxing ability. Tyson had become everything that Cus D'Amato had envisioned, a fighter who was physically unbreakable, technically perfect, and mentally unstoppable. Conclusion. Mike Tyson's training routine wasn't just about building a boxer, it was about proving what's possible when human potential meets uncompromising dedication. The brutal 4 a.m. starts, the thousands of repetitions, the relentless pursuit of perfection, it all served to create something extraordinary. What can we learn from Iron Mike's approach? First, that consistency trumps intensity. It wasn't one brutal workout that made Tyson great. It was the same brutal workout repeated thousands of times. Second, that mental training is just as important as physical training. Tyson's psychological preparation was as systematic and intense as his physical conditioning. Third, that specialization breeds excellence. Every element of Tyson's training was specifically designed to make him a better boxer. There were no wasted movements, no exercises that didn't directly contribute to his fighting ability. The routine that built Mike Tyson teaches us that human potential is far greater than most of us ever imagine. When we see what one person accomplished through dedication, discipline, and relentless hard work, it challenges us to examine our own limits and ask, what could we achieve if we brought that level of commitment to our own pursuits? The monster that was prime Mike Tyson wasn't born. He was forged, day by day, rep by rep, in the brutal crucible of Cus D'Amato's training system. It stands as one of the greatest examples in sports history of what happens when natural talent meets systematic development and unbreakable will. That's the true legacy of Mike Tyson's training routine. Not just the championships or the knockouts, but the proof that with the right approach, dedication, and mindset, human beings can achieve the seemingly impossible. What limits are you ready to break? What monster are you ready to build within yourself? The blueprint is there. The question is whether you have the courage to follow it. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about his brutal training routine? And thank you for watching Back to Boxing.